All right. Hey, what's up, guys? Jim and Caleb here again for another Doors to Deals episode. And today we have Sharon on the line. Sharon, can you introduce yourself and kind of just a quick little background on your real estate experience?
Sure. I'm Sharon Vornholt, and I bought my first house. I started investing in 1998. So a long time ago, probably longer than Caleb's been alive. But
when were you born?
92.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, see. So, but I started out my early years. My dad was a general contractor, and by default, I was the oldest of four children and the most well-behaved. So he would drag me along on job sites. And that's where I kind of learned how much I loved construction. He did mostly commercial doctor's offices and things like that. But fast forward some years, and after working in the medical field, I decided to open a home inspection company, which I had for 17 years. That was 1991. And then in 1998, knew a lot of realtors, and I had a realtor walk in my office, and we did inspections for her. And she said, "Do you want to go to a RIA meeting?" And I said, "Well, what the heck's a RIA meeting?" And so that was my first introduction to real estate, that you didn't necessarily have to be an agent to be in real estate. And fast forward from that time, I kept the other business for 8 years. I invested, I would do a rehab, do a buy a rental, do a rehab, kind of a really slow but steady path. And then in 1998, we all know what happened. So that was the best of worlds and the worst of times. But I closed the home inspection company and just focused on real estate full time. And that's when I became an accidental wholesaler. I had a couple of houses I planned to rehab, and I looked around and said, what am I going to do? Because it's going to take however long it takes, and then they're going to sit on the market for God knows how long till a retail buyer can get a mortgage. So that's when I just called someone and said, hey, you want to buy a couple of properties? And they said, sure. And I thought, well, that was easy. So, but my strength was always in marketing and sourcing deals. So it was an easy transition for me. Not necessarily that it's the easiest place to start for everyone, but that's how I started wholesaling.
Yeah. So as far as marketing and sourcing deals, like what's worked for you over the years? Like what do you do?
Forever and ever, direct mail marketing. I've used it in two businesses. A lot of networking, and then of course putting yourself out there through. I have a podcast, I have a blog, do some video. So I would say you have to create some kind of content. If you don't have to have a podcast like James does, like these guys do, or I do. You don't have to have a blog, but you have to create some kind of content. And the best way to do that is through video. The simplest way, I will say that, because you can whip out your phone and then you can decide if you want to do something that's a real commitment like a podcast. But if people, from a branding and marketing perspective, if people don't know about you, they can't choose you. So marketing is how you get leads, but branding is always why they choose you over your competition.
I love how you said that about, like, you have to put out video content and you don't have to be as committed as a podcast. We talk about it all the time. Pull out your phone and just really quick do a video about something cool that happened that day or something you learned, and tell your audience, even if it's on Facebook.
So are you saying even if you're camera shy, you just have a video of the actual house?
Well,
absolutely. I used to be the most camera shy person ever when I was in my early 20s.
I don't believe that.
Oh yeah, me too. I tell people I'm a fully recovered introvert. So the first time I got asked by an important person to make a video training for their website, 15 minutes. It took me 2 days. And even at the end of 2 days, I just went, okay, I can't do this anymore. But nobody likes the way they sound. Nobody likes the way they look. You just have to make yourself do it. And the quickest way to do it, I think, is to commit to making. I went really hardcore. I committed to making 12 videos in a day. But you could literally take your camera out, walk properties, talk about your mindset that day. You can talk about the property. You can do walkthroughs. It doesn't have to be hard, but I agree completely with Caleb. You could just pull out your phone and do it. And then after one day, you'll realize, gee, this is not nearly as hard as it used to be.
So 2 months ago in an agent meeting, so we have an agent side of our business that I run. I challenged all the agents to make a video that day. And I think out of about 20 of them, 3 of them did it. And the next week, all 3 are like, I picked up a piece of business from that video. And then I looked at the other 17 and said, how many of you guys got a piece of business from that video? And they're like, well, we didn't post it. And then we got another like 4 or 5 people on the team the next week to do it, or like 2 weeks later, I think it was. And all of them got a piece of business off the one video. And what's so cool 2 months later. So some of them continued the trim, some of them didn't. Some of them who posted the one video have gotten 2 and 3 leads off Facebook that they never gotten before from posting one video.
It's amazing because it is really who knows you. It's not so much who you know. You get opportunities like some of the things we do, you get opportunities through that. But at the end of the day, it's who knows you. If they have a deal to sell, if they have a house to list, whatever it is, if they think of you, you want them to think of you every single time.
Yeah, the one thing that's my idea is I want everyone to think about Caleb when they think about real estate. And I was talking to somebody this weekend and they're like, what do you do? And it's like, well, that's really hard to explain. And we came up with this synopsis. I'm a problem solver. So and for you guys out there listening, start branding yourself as a real estate problem solver, because you don't want to limit yourself to just retail or just investing. In my opinion, you want to be able to refer that out to other people in the industry. Even if you get a lead, someone's cousin wants to buy a house and you don't work with buyers, give it to an agent who's going to give you a piece of business.
I agree with that 100%. And that's probably the biggest mistake most people make. And I made it also. When you start out, you don't think that you're brand worthy. You say, I haven't done a deal. I don't have a brand. What would I even tell people? And I tell them, just walk into a networking event and say, hi, I'm Sharon. I'm brand spanking new and I'm here to learn. Well, they're going to remember that about you. So you don't have to be a big deal, but brand yourself and do what Caleb just said. Make a video, put it on Facebook, put it on YouTube, and you will be amazed at how that comes back to you, because you really just remember you can't be the best kept secret in town and expect to get business. You just can't.
Absolutely. And everybody has value. Brand spanking new. You know what I hear? I hear time. Well, if you're brand spanking new, you have time to do stuff.
Exactly.
Experience when you probably, and like you're doing a lot of stuff, like you may not have that much time anymore because you're already busy doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay. So let's kind of get back to your story, Sharon. So you really started kind of at 1998 working as a wholesaler.
Can we dig into that real quick about what happened in 98 for people that don't know?
Okay. Yeah.
Because our market's getting a little weird right now where it's May of 2022 for those of you listening is later, and we don't know what's going to happen. And everyone keeps talking about 2008, but nobody's talking about 98. Could we elaborate based on some of your experience of what happened in the market? Because that was the .com bubble, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. Well, it didn't affect me a whole lot at that time because I had another very demanding business and I was able to go with the flow. But what I remember about those times is it was the beginning of the internet. Things where we did, I don't know if you all probably don't remember this, but I call it BI. Before the internet, I worked with realtors a lot. And we did old-fashioned marketing. Those were the days where you could walk in the doors and take them Valentine balloons and bagels, and you could take marketing materials. The old days of doing flyers, you had to really get to know the people that you wanted to do business with, and they had to see that you had value. Because back in 1998, I had a home inspection company. Guess how many other women there were? 0. Not that I was crawling under houses, by the way. I was the lowly owner of the company. But it was it was hard back then. We had to sell people in home inspections on the value of a home inspection because it was still buyer beware. It was still very much the Wild West. But we had to learn how to adjust our marketing from each spot from 1998 forward. You have to be able to pivot. That's for sure. You have to be able to pivot on a dime, which is what I did with the wholesales, later on down the road.
That's amazing. So we talk to people a lot with this is you have to be ready to shift on your feet for what the next market of the moment is. So I like that you say that. The other thing is, did real estate stop in 98?
No, not at all.
And it was a stock market crash, which might be what we're seeing happen next, guys.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because a lot of people are worried real estate's going to stop right now. It's not stopping. People are going to be buying. People are going to be selling. They just sell and buy differently.
They do it differently. And there's an older gentleman in my area. I mean, he's probably at this time late 80s. And he'll look at you and he'll say, I made money in real estate when interest rates were 17%. I made money when they were 3%. I just did it differently. And that has I've never forgotten when he said that. You just have to change the way you do business.
Absolutely. I love that. I want to keep hitting that message. So I'm glad that you see that same thing, because we're talking about it on our business bits. We're talking about it to our team. People are getting so worried, how am I going to make money? just make money differently.
Yeah. So like in my, I guess it's not as brief anymore. So I started in 2008. So 14 years now or whatever it is. We started out doing short sales. That's all we did.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing short sales the past year, you'd really be struggling. Like we end up pivoting out of it. And so we call that, Caleb said it earlier, just like, what is the market of the moment? What's the honey hole? Like where's all the money at? So I absolutely love that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's, someone told me the other day, I can't have an opinion on 2008 because I was in high school during it. And I was like, what does that even mean? I talk to them all the time trying to learn about it. So those of you guys that are new, just learn from the old, learn from the seasoned people that have been through that. Real estate's still going to happen. So what happened? So you shifted through 98. Where's your business going? What are some?
Well, it was really 2008 that made the big change for me. It was the year I went full time. It was the year I became a wholesaler. And it was the year I discovered probates, which at that time were a niche that nobody was working. And I had spent the next few years trying to figure the whole thing out. What are the rules? What are the laws? And how can I make this work for real estate investing? And the reason I love, there are on-market deals, of course, that are always there, but I love off-market deals because there's so much less competition. And really because I was not the type of person that liked to get in there and scrap around with 3,500 realtors and a bunch of investors for a single house. I just found that was my spot. And when I found probate, you talked about being a problem solver. See, that's what I tell people we do. We solve problems that just happen to involve real estate. And if you can get really good at talking to people, you can make a lot of money in real estate. And not that I don't love agents. I do. I've worked with agents my whole life. But there's another whole subset of people over here that are homeowners. And if you can sit down with them and talk to them and find out what their problem is, and offer them a solution, which, by the way, is not always about money. I bought many deals where I wasn't the highest offer, but I had another solution. You need to find out, what do you want in addition to cash? What is it you want? And that's the same true with retail real estate. You want to sell your property, but what is it you really want? You want to move? You need to relocate? Do you need help with cleaning out your house? What is it you really need? And then see if you can pick up that extra piece, which will give you an edge over everybody else.
Ryan talks about this a lot. He's our business partner. Terms matter more than money, but money is a term. All terms matter on a contract. For our people who are new, what is a probate? Because we do have a lot of newer audience listening. Can you explain what probates are to them?
I can. It's a very straight line process. So I'll go through the steps and then I'll go back and explain them a little bit. So in probate, and this is true for most every state. Now, mind you that behind the scenes, attorneys are doing things. That's why I say God made attorneys for these reasons. So we'll just focus on how this affects a real estate investor. So someone passes away, then the estate is opened. And the next thing that happens is they have to decide who's the decision maker. Is there an executor, or does the court have to appoint an administrator? And it's the next step that everybody needs to focus on. The fourth step is where the assets in the estate are sold. Then the heirs get what's left and the estate is closed. So going back to the first step, when someone passes away, the family has to open the probate. They have to do that with an attorney or through the court. You can do it yourself, but I would not advise doing it that way. So when the estate is opened, they'll do things like verify the will, the attorney's will. They'll do all of that behind the scenes. But they want to know, who is the decision maker here? Who has the ability to sell the property and the other assets in the estate? So if you were to name someone in your will, I appoint Jim, or I appoint this person to settle my estate, then that will just be, the court will say this is the person. But if in the absence of a will, which is intestate, then the court will appoint usually the next logical person. It'll be a spouse or a child or whoever it is. Once that is done, then you have they got a paper that says I can, here it's called the letters. It's called different things, different places. But it says that they have the legal right to carry out the duties and the responsibilities of settling the estate. And once they have done that step, which is very early in the process, they can sell the property in the estate. People mistakenly think you have to get the estate closed, and that's when you can buy the property, out of the estate, when they can sell it. But that's not true. It's early on. And note that they must sell it. If it's in probate, it's not a question of if they're going to sell it. It's a matter of when they're going to sell it. Sometimes a family member will negotiate to buy the property, but in most cases, that property is going to be sold. And it is a golden opportunity for investors, but especially for realtors in a seller's market. Oh my gosh, there is a world of opportunity. And let me tell you, agents, you have got no competition out there for probates. You use the same process, direct mail marketing. And I know this, don't text these people, don't call them, don't knock on their door. They will not like you. Go the old route, nurture them along the path. And then, because they may not be ready to sell for 6 months or 9 months, maybe a year. But know that once they've opened the estate, that they're raising their hands saying, I am ready to dispose of this property. That's when you start marketing to the people. So once you do that, you set up a direct mail campaign. And then let's say you buy the property, and they're taking care of all the assets, any boats or property, things that have not been willed to someone will be, they'll just get a big pile of cash. It'll go in the bank. And then the heirs, once that's all done, then and only then do the heirs get what they're going to inherit. And look, that's at the bottom of the process. When the assets are sold, they're going to pay the creditors. That's one thing that happens before the people, the heirs get what's owed. And who are the creditors? Well, it could be a nursing home, it could be a mortgage, a car payment, a bill. It could be funeral expenses. So that's one thing they have to do. Once the assets are sold, they're going to pay the creditors, and then the heirs get what's left over.
So
Sharon, that's it.
If I can interject something really quick, you breezed over it, and it's one of the most important things us as real estate professionals need to be aware of. So when the market shifts, so like back in 2008, it was a crazy buyer's market, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But people still had to sell, a portion of the audience. So when you it's the motivation to sell. When the market shifts, it becomes like the only people moving are, I got a job transfer and I have to move, or someone passed away in this case and they need to sell the house because you have to settle the estate. So what I would really recommend everybody listening in on is pay attention to what your lead sources is and what the motivation to sell is. And if you're playing around in the demographics that they have to sell, it's a need, not a want. Like they have no choice, they need to. You're going to be really set up to do very, very well in a shifting market. So yeah, you can make money in any market, but when it is a buyer's market, you can get very, very wealthy with probates, because this is a legal process, and they're on a kind of a timeline where they need to sell this property, and it is something that you can avoid. I'll interject this for anybody listening. Put your properties in a trust. Don't let your property end up in probate, because then it escapes the whole process. Talk to an attorney about that. But if the property's in probate, it's going to have to be sold. That there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it if it's not directly inherited. Earlier,
we talked about terms and how important terms can be. Think about this, guys. How important can time, how fast you can close, be a term to someone in probate? Well, we said the inheritance aren't able to get any of their money until the property's sold. A lot of times they might need that money to survive. It might be paying off credit cards for them. It might be buying them a new vehicle that they desperately need. How important could time be to that person to be able to access? Yeah,
and when it's earned equity versus inherited equity, a lot of times people treat that differently as well. They'll just, oh my gosh, well, I'm getting 20 grand that I didn't think I was even going to get. I want it right now. Well,
and here's one thing that you can. Here, I'll give you a couple of tips for probate. So I had one closing, the only one that took 5 months, where the people were trying to do the estate themselves. That's why I encourage the people to get an attorney and work it out so that they can get paid out of the estate. But I had to keep going back and getting an extension on that contract. And I called my real estate attorney and I said, Harry, this was just awful. What can I do to prevent this from happening? And he told me to put in a phrase in there. You know how you say, here I would say on a typical investor deal, I might say the closing would be no sooner than 7 days and no longer than however 21 or 30 or whatever the time is. He said add right after that, say closing will be no sooner than whenever, no longer than say 30 days upon court/attorney approval to sell. So you add that phrase into your contract, and then your contract never goes out of date because you have it. Your time starts from when you get the approval from the attorney or the court. In most cases, it comes right away, but every now and then there's a problem, and it takes a long time. But you don't. Your property doesn't get out of contract. You don't have to go back and renegotiate and hope the seller hasn't found someone that's going to pay $30 more. So you can. That's one big tip. The second tip is these people. Lots of these people need help cleaning out the house. The elderly people may not be hoarders, but they're very often what I call keepers. They keep mountains of butter tubs, magazines, stuff, Reynolds wrap, go figure. They just keep stuff. And the heirs go in there and look at that and they go, I just can't deal with that. And they lock the door and walk away. They do that about 4 or 5 times until they get the notice that says, hey, you have to sell this property. We have to file a federal tax return on this property. So then they're like, okay, I need to sell like right away. And then you can offer to solve their other problem, which is cleaning out the property.
Absolutely. Do you have so you get a hold of like a probate list? Like, how do you recommend people find like these lists?
Well, that's the $1 million question. There are over 3,300 counties in the U.S., and each county has a different procedure. And a lot of the areas are online. It depends on where you're located. In my area, which I thought was horribly old school, every shred of information you need is published in the newspaper once a month. So all you need is the name and address of the executor and the name and address of the deceased. You don't need to know when they passed away. You don't need anything else. But check, I would Google probates, cases plus your city, probate plus your county. And then you do a little bit of detective work. Many places, like I said, they're just simply online. So you need to find that out in your area. Worst case scenario, some people in big cities like Fort Lauderdale, they have to go to the courthouse. If you're in New Jersey, God help you, you got to go to the courthouse. So, but in most places, there are other ways to get those listings. And there are certain areas like Chicago, there's a software you can subscribe to because they're online. With that, I don't know just enough to be dangerous. With that open API, they can pull the data in. But if you're getting a word of warning here, if you're getting buying probate data and all they have is the name and address of the deceased, and they might say something like, "Oh, this is so fresh, we don't have the executor information," don't buy those leads because that means they're working obituaries and you can't buy the property until the probate's been opened. You need that information. And then you need a strong follow-up system where you mail these people every month as long as the house is available. And your letter matters too. It should be a very soft touch letter that basically says, this is what I do, and I'll be here when you're ready to sell. No hard sell. People grieve and go through this process in different ways. And I think that's what differentiated me in this probate market. I just knew how to not push these people.
And a lot of people, they know they need to sell, but they don't know who to call. They don't know who to reach out to. Mm-hmm. And that's a pain point. I mean, yes. Like you're actually potentially really helping solve a problem. I worked some probates 4 or 5 years ago. And I would go to a lot of those people and, granted it was sad and they would cry, but they were so thankful that you came to them and you reached out, because for them to make that step to call and reach out was really accepting that their loved one was gone. So someone else coming and reaching out to them and saying, "Hey, I'm here to help whenever you're ready," can be a really nice blessing to those people.
Well,
you'll have the people who are like upset that you reached out and saying you're being predatory, et cetera. But there's some people out there that are really, really thankful for you when you do that.
Hey guys, for those of you that are local to St. Louis, I wanted to make sure you knew about an amazing resource that we have to help do some extra deals. You can email our team at deals@3doors.com. And just so you know, we do deals with other investors all the time. Like, it's been hundreds and hundreds over the years, and we've averaged over 100 deals with other investors per year for over the last 5 years. We can straight up buy the deal if you have a wholesale under contract that you want to sell. If you need funding to finance a flip, or like you're doing a burst strategy, we have funding available for you. If you're trying to wholesale a deal, we're doing JV wholesale deals with other wholesalers that, quite frankly, some of the deals we're putting together for a beginner or an intermediate investor, they'd probably be walking away from because we have systems and processes, and we have buyers in place that are paying top dollar for these properties. So make sure you use this resource. And the best way to get and the easiest way is to just send us an email, deals@3doors.com. All right, back to the episode.
You'll have the people who are like upset that you reached out and saying you're being predatory, et cetera. But there's some people out there that are really, really thankful for you when you do that.
I would say most people are really thankful. I've gotten more hugs at probate closings than any type of closing, because they are so grateful. I mean, if you think about it, you've got your life, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's children, maybe it's sports or meetings. And then on top of that, you've got all of this estate stuff that you are really pretty clueless about how to do it yourself. So these people tend to put it off, and it's very painful. Like when my mother passed away, she had belongings that had really no monetary value, like her sofa, which she dearly loved, but it didn't have any monetary value, and you've got to dispose of their stuff. So when somebody offers to do that for you, take everything you want, mementos, books, stuff, and I'll take care of the rest. That's a big thing for them. And when you can take the weight off of them, to your point, the weight of this whole everything that surrounds someone's passing, they are so darn grateful. You're their best friend.
And that's the advantage of being an investor, because agents aren't going to do that. They're not going to offer to clean the house out. Now, hopefully advisors on our team would, but most.
Well, I'll clarify that. I'm not going to personally clean out the house. Correct. I figure the clean out in everything. Yeah. If I'm wholesaling the house, I give that to my investor buyer and say, this is the clean out expenses included in there. That's something you hire out. It's just a service you provide, and it's an expense line if you're figuring a full out rehab, it's just an expense in that rehab, whether it doesn't matter what your strategy is.
Yeah. And I think a lot of realtors do miss the boat on this, and that, like, and I know I had such a hard time with this too, like my first 5 years or so, like, price is everything. Well, okay, they go to a lead, like a probate listing lead, they call it a listing appointment. And okay, I need you to take these curtains down. I need you to paint, and I need you to clean this house out. And we're going to list it for $100,000. And we're going to make you the most amount of money you possibly can. Someone that's grieving of the parent that just passed away, you think an extra $5,000 or $10,000 in their pocket, that may not be more valuable than just, hey, in 2 weeks, here's the keys to the house you grew up in and you lived in for 50 years and your family's owned for 50 years. And it's time for you to just move on to the next chapter of life and start the healing process. I mean, that's a lot more valuable in many cases than squeezing every penny out of a deal, right?
For sure. And if you're an agent investor, are both of you an agent investors?
We both are, yeah. Yep.
Yes. Okay. So the laws have changed, and the thinking around this has changed in most areas. I remember when it was not okay for an agent to say, I can also buy your house. But many people in many areas now go and they go on those appointments and they say, they may say, this is who I am, and I'm here to buy your house today. I'm also a real estate agent, licensed real estate agent. If this doesn't work for you, we can pursue that. But you've got to follow the rules and the laws in your state. But in Kentucky, it happens all the time. It's all about your disclosure here. And if you can give them almost two options, which one works for you. But to your point, they're not going to fix up the house. First of all, the heirs don't usually have the money to fix up the house. The money's in the house. And even if they have it, they don't want to spend their time doing that because they may already be fronting the utility bills. If it's winter in Minnesota, you've got to keep the heat on in that house. If you're in Florida or
Louis, you got to keep the heat on.
You got to keep the heat on. There are expenses that go along with this. And if you stop and think about most families, how many families are in the position to front two utility bills, to everything? Maybe they have a HELOC on the house, but they're trying to save the house from going to foreclosure by the bank. They're trying to work all this out, and they really don't have a clue to do it. It goes back to when you're working short sales and things. You have the advantage of being of understanding how this all works and reaching out to people, of getting yourself in the position to talk to the bank where you say, hey, I'm an investor, I'm going to buy the house, or I'm an agent, I'm going to list the house. What can we do to stop this from happening? So your knowledge is your best friend when it comes to probates.
Absolutely.
So have you been doing probates like since 98 then? And that's been like your main niche and your main focus, or did you?
Since 2008, yes.
2008, okay.
Mm-hmm. Off market for sure, but probates, as I said, it's still a wide open market. Somebody said to me the other day, gosh, they got 20 letters. And I said, well, let's think about this for a minute. There's a property on the MLS, and depending on where you live, it's got thousands of agents looking at one property. Is 30 letters really a lot? Because once you understand direct mail marketing, about 81% of your deals, not your calls, but your deals will come at or beyond the fifth mailing, statistically. I've gotten deals off the first mailing, second, all the way down, but it gets to be like a compound effect. And if you're taking new leads every month and you're putting those into your pipeline, pretty soon it's going to be the fifth month for every group of leads. So that's one statistic. But 91% of your competition or your perceived competition will quit mailing on or before the third mailing. And that's what you really need to focus on. You want to go the process, mail everybody every 30 days, depending on whether it's a seller's market or a buyer's market. The process will generally be over in 12, 15, 18 months, certainly 18 months. It's not forever, but it's just a process, and you just want to be the last man standing. I'll say that.
War of attrition.
Yeah, people will quit. They're not going to do it because that's work.
They don't have the money to do it. They're not patient enough. Gotcha. So after the fifth mailing, that's really interesting. I've heard a lot of people. They're like, I'm on my third, I'm on my fourth set, and they still haven't got anything. And
they just need to hang in there. And two, it's about direct mail response rates are. I remember when they were 5 or 6%, it was just gold. Now they're maybe 1 or 2%. But if you're doing too small of a mailing to you, you've got to get to a critical number. Let's say you're doing 1,000. If you're getting statistically, that would be 1 or 2 leads a month. If you can, it's all about working the leads too. How good are you at closing the leads? How good are you at talking to people? I don't even think you have to be a master negotiator. You have to be really good at conversation, but you just stay in there.
1,000 mailers a month. What is the cost on that for people that might not know?
To do what I recommend, in my course, it's a white computer generated letter that is a mail merge letter that says, "Dear Mr. Smith, I'm contacting you about this property." So no mass taking a letter that says, "Dear executor," and having it copied at Home Depot. But you can get it for under $1. Now, putting that into perspective, when I started in 2008, it was about $1.50 for a letter then, when stamps were, 30 cents or something. So if you look at it, you can get them between 85 cents and $1, and a stamp is 50 some cents now. Trust me, you cannot do it as cheaply as you can outsource it. You can just outsource the whole thing. It goes out every month. So something under $1,000. But if you take your first deal or two and don't do anything with that, but put it in your marketing pot of money, you'll have enough marketing money to go forward. And then from there, take a percentage of everything out and use it for marketing. And that's how you scale your marketing.
And now do you have a company to outsource it to, or do you own a company that can do this?
Now I have a company that I use, that I recommend, that's really a good company. And all you do is just send them an email. They can keep, this is how easy it is. You can upload your list to them, and then they will send it out for you. You just have a credit card on file, or you can call them with a credit card and you just remind them to send it out for you. You literally don't do any of it. And you cannot do it by the time you buy paper, toner, stamps. You can't do it as cheap as what they can do it for you. And plus, you don't have to do it.
That saves you the time, which for a lot of people is the issue.
Yeah, your deal is your job is to generate the leads. It's not to be the direct mail company. We did that early on when it was so terribly expensive, and it's not fun.
No, one thing I would say, and this is a mistake I made, one of the last things you should actually outsource, in my opinion, is the answering of the phone call, because no one is going to do it as good as you, because you just put $1,000 into it, right? Like if you outsource, so like we outsourced too quickly, and we actually hired a VA to do it, which is they had a little bit of an accent, and that just completely clobbered the conversion of what we did. So like, that's a several $100,000 lesson that 2 years later we figured out why it wasn't working as well as it should have.
I agree 100%.
But then that's typically, I see a lot of people wanting to outsource that first, because it can be kind of a pain to answer the phone call. And when you answer that phone call or you get it, there's statistics. We've gone over this before. I'm trying to go into the vault of, this is like 2 years ago when we looked at this. I think it's like a 500% increase in conversion if you answer or you return a phone call within 5 minutes. So just like so the negative with that is phone by your side. And if you really want to do deals and you're really hungry to do deals, you might have to take a phone call during dinner, or during date night with your spouse or whatnot. And that's the reason why I see a lot of people wanting to outsource that first. Right.
I think this too all goes back to branding. Branding at its essence is the way you make people feel about you. It's the way they perceive you, your trust, your credibility. Nobody can convey the passion you have for your business and for helping people. No VA can do that like you can do that. So I would say hang on to that as long as you can. And then be very careful about who you hire. Don't hire the cheapest. And back to the accent, it's a thing. People are turned off by that. So it's very important that the person you hire has the proper training and that they understand the core values and about your business, what your business stands for, so that they can adequately portray, put themselves in your shoes, so to speak.
Yeah, your mission, vision, and for us, target. One thing my dad taught me about business early on, which kind of correlates with this, is and it has to do with two things that we're kind of going, is full-time employees are going to give full-time effort. Part-time employees are going to have part-time effort. And that always really stuck with me. And the other thing is he always told me, you can't expect anyone to do or work as hard as you do, because nobody else has a financial upside in your company that you do. And their name's not on the door. And that really stuck with me a lot when you think about like outsourcing people or bringing more people in, because your first hire, your second hire, you want them to perform at the level you do. You have to automatically understand from day one, they're going to be 10% or 20% less as effective as you, because their last name's not there. They're not the one who, if the company goes under, is going to be in financial ruin for years, potentially. And I think having those expectations set right when you're hiring your first few people is really critical to have success. I think a lot of businesses, they fail in that first, second, third hire because they think that person's going to do the same amount of work they do.
Yeah. And I think, yes, that, and I think sometimes we're so caught up in the busyness of the business that when you hire your first person or two, you just don't really understand how much time it's going to train them. They can't perform if we don't train them. And I think that's a hard lesson each of us has had to learn. We just think we jump into things. We jump out of the plane and grab the parachute as we go out the door. So we think they can do that. But in reality, they are good employees because they're not entrepreneurs in most cases.
People don't rise to the level of expectations. They fall to the level of training.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you have to set up a really good 30, 60, 90, train people, set them up for success, give them goals and things to hit in their first 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months, or you're never going to be successful.
You know, what's interesting, just talking about leading people. It's complicated and simple at the same time. I have very much like an appeasing side to me, and I want everybody to be happy. And one of leadership's skills is to just try and motivate and be positive and talk, or, and just like kind of get people going. And that's really important. And there's also an element of truth that needs to take place. And where I struggled as a leader early on was, I was nice, people would like me, but then I would be very vague if they weren't performing well. I wouldn't be candid with them. And then I would keep getting upset. Like, well, why aren't they doing this? Well, they didn't do it because I didn't have the cojones to have a candid conversation, say, this is where I need you to improve. So the best relationships, if you think about it too, are not just the positive, because at some point you're like, okay, this person's full of BS. Like, come on, like I'm not perfect. I don't expect you to act like that. So like, it's a mix of positivity and then also being very real. So what Caleb mentioned with the 30, 60, 90 guys, that's important to realize is you can set a very crystal clear, this is what the bar is, this is what I need from you. Did you achieve it or not? And if you didn't, okay, do we need a different role or do you need to find something else? And you take away all the emotion, you take away all the and you just get so synced up on what the expectations are from both parties. And then you know how well you're winning or not. And and if they're failing, like a team member doesn't want to fail. They don't want to fail you. They want to do a good job typically. I haven't really, we've hired a lot of people, worked with a lot of people. I haven't really met anybody that just outright wanted to do a bad job for what they were getting paid, right? People want to love what they want to do, and they want to love the people they work with. I think it's only 18% of people leave a job for money. 18% of people that quit jobs leave for more money. Kind of back to what you're saying about how people have to emulate you. And I mentioned the mission and vision, and why that's so important is when you're casting your vision to your hires and you're casting your vision to people you're bringing on, if they don't see themselves growing into your vision to where they want to be with their vision, they're going to go find somebody else's vision to fit into. So it's really, really important that you cast that often and frequently. That's one thing I think we do a good job at. And Jim actually did in our operations meeting today, talk to all our ops team about where we're going, where we're going to be, and where they can grow inside of that. Yeah, I mean, we're always improving too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're a growing company that definitely always has improvements to make. But. Oh, okay. So Sharon, so then the focus since 2008. Let's get it back to the probates. It's been probates. Like, have you been doing any other real estate deals? Has anything else been going on, or has it just been probate, like just focused on this niche? That and just off-market deals in general. The past few years, I focused really heavily on teaching other people how to do what I do. It's become a real passion of mine. I think one of the things I've focused on is getting more women into this business. I think women are uniquely suited to be in real estate, and certainly with probates and off-market deals. I think they're good at having hard conversations. I think they're good at going and talking to probate people because they're just used to dealing with people. They don't think it's anything odd, to go in and just start the conversation. But I love teaching marketing and branding and probate investing. And so I've spent a lot of time doing that in the past few years too. It's funny, like, apparently my words are failing me. Why do you think there aren't more women investing? A lot of women seem to gravitate towards just being realtors, I think. What's the hang up on investing? What do you think?
You want my honest answer?
Yeah. Let's be honest. This is a safe place. There's only people listening, but that's okay.
Well, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but so I've been doing this about 25 years, and it's always been because most investors were male. It's been the good old boys club, and certainly in my area, we go to our meeting, and there are 500-600 people at that meeting. And you can count on two hands these days, the active female investors. They have a hard time finding their way. And so part of what I've done is to try to show them that this is not just for men, it's for women. You can do this, but they need a lot of, they don't have the confidence. So I look at myself sometimes as a confidence builder and say, look, these men have a lot to teach you about the mechanical side of this business. But when it comes to people skills, we're used to negotiating with children over bedtimes and snacks. And it's kind of negotiation is kind of a normal, it's just a conversation. So I think women have a hard time seeing that they fit into this world, quite frankly. So
it's so funny, like when you think something, then when you get into it and you're like, your perspective, where I'm in 14 years, I'm not quite the veteran you are, Sharon, but the like what you think you need and like what you actually need are two different things. And the people skills guys that she was just describing are far more important than like being like a seasoned pro that can calculate to the penny what you're going to make on a deal.
Exactly. If you can overcome the hangups, and let's say, like we talked about mindset without calling it mindset with probate. So the ability to talk to these people and solve their problem. With any type of real estate deal, you need to know why are they selling? Why do they need to sell? Do they need to sell? Today, the reasons might be different, but if you can dive into the mindset behind what is really going on, without ever telling them that's what you're doing, of course, then you can begin to understand their problem and you can better solve their problem, because it is, at the end of the day, about solving problems. But I think women in particular have inherited a certain mindset. And it's not just with real estate investing. If you look in a lot of professions, there's a glass ceiling for women that came from generations before. And they're making small progress, but women still haven't caught up in most fields. But I think in real estate, they're often the women, some may be very bold, but often they're very timid and they just slide back in there. They say, no, this is not a place where I can have a seat at the table. And that part of that is on them. So I talk a lot about mindset and things. And
it's so interesting because, like, I mean, for the guys listening in, sorry, this is my opinion. I think women are better realtors than males, like just from my experience.
Absolutely.
Like some of the best realtors I know are women, and they do it because of the professionalism, because of the rapport building, because of the communication, the being able to help somebody in need and solve problems. And that's the fascinating thing with even the agents and how little few of them invest. It's like you're already doing like 80% of it. Like it's just, okay, yeah, you need to be able to know if it's 20K in repairs or 30K in repairs. But honestly, even if you mess that up, if you write the contract the right way, you can mess that up and you'll learn that lesson and get good at that. But I don't, I love what you're all about, Sharon. I love how you're trying to bring more women into investing. And I completely agree with you. I think there should be far more women investing than are. I mean, we have several people we know, several women that are doing a lot of really good things. Like Nita's doing great things, and we have several other team members. And then we have, I think Laura. I think you're listening in live. Laura Lennington, shout out to you. You're doing amazing things.
Laura's one of the most hustling wholesalers I know.
Yeah, you're incredible, Laura. And she says hi, thank you. And I forget the podcast episode, but Laura has been interviewed on this podcast too. But anyway, so
I'll never forget when I met Laura. I think she like kind of cold called me, and we went and sat down and had a meeting. And we've done a lot of deals since. I'd say she's a high level wholesaler. Yeah, there's
well, thank you, Laura.
Oh, so Laura's listened to you for years.
Wow.
You really inspired her early on. So she's giving you a shout out in the chat.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for women to grow in the real estate investing space, especially. I mean, they dominate the agent side of the business, and there's so much room for growth in the agent space. They typically have better eyes to see what can be done to a property than we can. My girlfriend Nita, she's like a design specialist, kills it. And we have a really good duo that happens because like I understand the construction side of houses at a very high level, what layouts can be moved in easily and how much that's going to cost. And Nita understands like what things can be done to make spaces look much better. So when we walk a property together, it's really cool how we bounce things off of each other. But the way that she thinks about design, my brain doesn't go that way.
So such powerful partnerships can happen when men and women can work together in this business.
So Sharon, what other, we have you for a few more minutes. I want to like get more wisdom from you. And yet I'm not like thinking of the right question here. Share something else, share some wisdom here with us. What else can you share with us that would be just important for us to be focusing on right now in today's market?
Well, I will tell you one thing is to be different with your marketing.
Okay.
So I've done this for a long time. I would send, even if the people turned me down on my offer, I sent them a thank you note. And knowing that they probably got mad over my offer and threw my business card away, I put another business card in the thank you note so that they could have that. Maybe they cooled off by then. But today I send things like Bonjuros. Bonjuro is a free app. It's just pop it up on your computer or your phone, and you would say, "Hey, Jim, thanks for showing me your house today. I'm sorry we couldn't come to an agreement. Just know that I'd love to be your plan B. And you can reach me at this phone number." Now, how powerful is that? You should send it, certainly if you get the deal, you should thank the person. Go out of your way to be different. But I would say think of ways in every step of your business that you can be different. We talked a little bit about answering the phone and how you show up. Think of ways that you can be different. And I just had a guy on my podcast a couple of months ago. He's kind of my hero. His name is Mike McAllowitz. He wrote, and we talked about his most recent book. He wrote The Pumpkin Plan, Profit First, and a lot of books. But this book is called Get Different: Marketing That Can't Be Ignored. A lot of the things I do already, but he's got some things in his book he talked about, you all might remember this. It used to have all the signs were metal that's stuck in the ground for realtors. And then the particular company made a big fancy wooden sign that they would use for homes. But do something in everything that you do to stand out from your competition. So I love marketing, and I like, we talked a little bit about video, but think about, if somebody is doing things one way, change it up and do it a different way. Be the one that they remember. But there are all kinds of tools you can use, things that you can do, but just try to stand out and don't do the same thing that everybody else is doing. And get that book. It's absolutely a wonderful book.
I like that. We talk a lot about in our business, how can we have like a world-class process for our clients?
Yes. Yes.
How can we bring every step of the process to world-class? Even I like that for the deals that you lose. It's fantastic to think about. Me and Jim we're taking notes over here all the time. So we're sitting here like, Jackie needs a listen. That's the one who talks to people.
Yeah, and you can do that. And you talk about taking notes and keeping, when you talk to a seller, I remember a specific time when they said, a lady called me back 6, 8, 9 months after I'd made her an offer. And she said, "Remember when you offered me $80,000 for my property? I'd like to take that now." And I said, "Hold on a minute. Let me look you up," because I kept everything in an old ACT database. And I would type notes about everything from the seller got mad. I would put everything in there. And this lady, I said, "Well, I need to come out and look at your property again. It's been 6 months, but actually the offer was $60,000. "Oh, really? I thought it was 80. I said, "Would you still like me to come out?" "Okay." See, she knew it wasn't 80,000, but she thought I wouldn't remember. So, but take notes. And if they say something like with probates, they might say something like, "The family just can't agree. The family is becoming broken up over this estate." You put that in your notes. And then when you go out there and talk to them, you don't say that to them. You would say something like, Look, I know it's hard for families to be in this situation. So why don't we all just sit down and see where everybody stands and what your concerns are? But you can kind of, and that only happens once in a little bit, every little bit, but you can kind of be the peacemaker in that situation and hear everybody out, because the siblings aren't hearing each other out, but you only know that situation exists because you noted it. So I note everything that happens.
Really meet your client where they're at when you do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have, we actually, what we'll do is our system will record that initial phone call, and our salespeople, before they go out to the appointment, they'll actually listen to the whole thing.
Nice. Yeah.
Exactly what they're doing for that. And then it feels like the left hand knows what the right hand's doing, right? And then it's
exactly. I think I know which system you're probably using, but yes, that's information that is invaluable when your person goes out to look at that property.
Yeah, and there's a couple of good ones, like CallRail's one of them. We use Podio, which is like smartphones connected to that. So that's what we're using there. But okay, so Sharon, hey, really quick, I like to ask this to people. If you could like wave a magic, or I'm in between two questions now, aren't I? Apparently, like I need to have lunch. I guess I missed breakfast this morning. That's what's going on.
That's what it is.
If you looked back and you had to give yourself like one piece of actionable advice when you were just starting out, what would be the most important thing that you could tell yourself? Two
things really is to start building your brand right away. Do that, and to become really good at networking. And I know that I was really introverted when I started, and my first few networking events, I would look in the door and see where I knew someone and head straight for that chair. So I was a terrible networker. But you will get more business and more referrals of all kinds if you can learn how to network. And for introverts, this is hard, but you just make yourself do it. It's kind of like making the video. Make yourself meet a person every time, then bump it up to 3. Don't think about shaking 100 hands. Think about making a real connection with someone. If you do that every week for 52 weeks and then do that for 5 years, you will have opportunities of all kinds come back to you years down the road, and certainly business, because remember, it's about who knows you, but get really good at networking.
And the key with that, guys, I loved how you put that, Sharon, real connection. Mm-hmm. People will see through if it's just this transaction person. Oh, they're talking to me, but they're really looking at dollar signs like on my forehead. Like people see that. A real genuine connection will go a really long way.
And the final question.
The final question. Okay.
Sorry, that Jim was trying to ask. If you can wave a magic wand and go 5 years in advance, what are you really celebrating that you did? Is that the right way?
Yeah, you got it.
Oh man, that is a tough one. If I could go 5 years forward and really celebrate something, it would be that I have impacted more women and made them know that there is a place for them amongst all the men out there that have been doing this so well for so many years. That would be my wish. And I try to empower my granddaughter with that same thought.
Love that so much. Well, thank you so much, Sharon. If some people want to get in touch with you, they want to learn about your courses, what are some great ways that people can find you?
They can, the podcast, Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. You can get that on Apple or any of the other platforms. You can go over to the blog, which is the Louisville Gals Real Estate blog. And there's a link off of there to the podcast. And there's a link off of there to my course, probate course, which is probateinvestingsimplified.com. So any of those ways. The blog is kind of a hub.
Oh, awesome. That's fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
It's been fun.
All right. So that's a wrap, guys. For additional resources, check out our website, doorstodeals.com/090 for this episode and a lot more. Agents, we have cash for you to do flips and your investors to do flips, and really also ways to save money. Check out our website, doorstodeals.com/090 for more information on how we can help you if you're in the St. Louis area. And then finally, go out, live your purpose, and above all else, go after your dreams. Till next time. Thanks for tuning into the show. For more episodes and resources that will unlock doors to deals, check out our website, doorstodeals.com.